today on the Diabetes Podcast.
And so it's so powerful in the visualization in terms of the diabetes conversation is how is our mind and our body in harmony, or how is it maybe like almost like a dissonance? And then when we let go of it being just so, what ends up happening is we actually let go of the gripping around the protection around it, because the restriction of movement or like any kind of trauma that we're holding, we actually hold on to it as a safety or a protective mechanism. And so when we think of it that way, it's like, okay, I'm having this response for my own protection, my own safety. And so how can I give a signal to this shoulder, for example, that it is safe, that it has permission to move?
Hello and welcome to the Diabetes Podcast. I'm Richie.
And I'm Amber.
And Amber, today we're in for a real treat. Today's guest is Veronique Ory. Veronique is an intuitive movement and mindfulness awareness guide, a yoga instructor, and the author of Shine On and Off the Mat. Veronique, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here.
Yay! I love to talk to you because in the space of diabetes, usually it's nutrition, exercise, lifestyle, movement. So oftentimes with movement, when you think of it, you're like, yeah, yoga is movement. That makes sense. But it's not what really pops into the head organically when you first think about movement. Do you have any idea why that might be so?
I mean, people have so many different access points as to what their idea of yoga is.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on Instagram, you might think, oh, this is something for very hypermobile people. Like you might see very impressive shapes of upside down kind of contortion like shapes.
That is very true. A lot of the influencers in the yoga space are like, I could practice every single day, I think, for 5 years and maybe touch on some of those ranges, but probably not.
I'd be happy to touch on my toes.
You are right now. You just bring the toes up to you. Yeah. What I love about the physical practice as the access to the emotional and the energetic practice and spiritual, if one is open to it, is that we realize that these things can't be separated, right? The way that we think about something is usually the way that we express it physically. So what is so phenomenal about the excuses as to why not to practice yoga is usually the same reason to practice. So for example, I can't touch my toes. I'm not flexible. I'm not strong. I don't have the range of motion. My balance is horrible. I'm too old. I injured my hip. I had both my knees replaced. Whatever the things are, is we witness that whatever it is we attune to, it begets more of that. So if we're one to just kind of lounge on the couch all day and we're like, oh, I just can't get up. That's true. You can't get up. But if you have the rhythm of, I walk my dog every morning, and then that becomes the new routine. And then it's like, oh, I'm actually going to call a friend and we're going to go stretch in the park. And then later on, they have a line dancing class locally and I'm going to go do that. And you find inventive ways to bring the socialization and the movement together, which one might not think that's yoga. And yet it is, because yoga is just another way of saying unity. So if you're connecting to mindfulness in some regard, I mean, you could be folding your laundry in a yoga kind of mindset of, I'm really feeling the fabric, I'm taking my time, versus I have to do this as quickly as possible. And so one of the things that I really love about how the physical can be a really nice mirror for the inner world is when we can feel that strength and flexibility physically, then we realize we have that in an energetic sense. Or what I really love to call back to was my very first yoga class, where I was so intimidated by very impressive dancers and gymnasts and seasoned practitioners. And I was thinking, I'll never be able to do that. And then the question is, how do we want to prove ourselves right? And then it was like a light bulb, and I don't know where it came from. It was like a message that just entered my brain where I thought, what if this person can do it and it means that it's possible, right? And so in this instance, it's standing on her hands. But that could be having a certain job. It could be having a certain relationship. And so, where are the ways that we're kind of like secretly blocking ourselves, or what is the story that we're telling ourselves that's limiting? And sometimes it's like, okay, maybe I can't stand on my hands, but I could have the visualization of it. And if the visualization is really tapped in authentically, then I could close my eyes. And right now I'm standing on my hands, right? I can feel that viscerally. And so it's so powerful in the visualization in terms of the diabetes conversation or any kind of something that we're moving through, is how is our mind and our body in a harmony, or how is it maybe in almost like a dissonance? Like I'm thinking like if you played a D and like a D sharp together, or you know what I mean? Like where there were like notes that were just kind of like that doesn't sound harmonious. Like it almost sounds like a mistake. And sometimes we do that. Like we might have the intention of, well, of course I want to feel good, but then our habits aren't supporting that intention. And so that's one of the ways that the yoga practice can be really impactful, of like really just getting awake to the sneaky thoughts that we have on a loop that maybe aren't servicing our healing journey.
Absolutely. That's such a big thing, that we're meaning making machines, and it's what kind of meaning do you assign to what is occurring. So for someone who's really not practiced in thinking in these terms of presence and awareness, what do you believe is a good entry point to mindfulness, to really appreciating the moment that they're in and disrupting these feedback loops that don't serve them?
There's so many ways to access this. I think one of the great ways that we could practice this is first thing in the morning, is just to start to, with curiosity, witness the thoughts that surface. If you're someone that likes to journal, you might voice note into your phone, or you might reflect if you live with someone, and you might just start to, almost like you're taking inventory of your inner world, of what are these thoughts that are on repeat or circling through. And I almost think of like a cow masticating. It's like sometimes we have to like chew on these thoughts until we're ready to metabolize them, so to speak. And so one of the ways to think about it is as if you're like your own spotlight operator. It's like you just like shine a light on what that is, and you observe it without judgment as much as possible. It's like, I'm a curious witness. I'm looking at this thought with curiosity. And what is so powerful about of just being awake to that, right? Like you could just think like, okay, what was the first thought I had when I woke up? Was it like, oh, I'm so excited to greet this day? Usually it's one of the extremes. Usually it's, like I woke up, right? I feel so cozy in my bed. I had a good night's rest. Or it's like annoyance at the alarm, like my back hurts, like, oh my gosh, I overslept, like, I have all this stuff to do today, right? Like, do you tend, and without judgment, like just honest check, like, what do you tend to be in when you're greeting the day? And that actually has such an imprint on the entire day. If you start like running late, it's a really hard climb to that recovery. But if you start like, wow, like that was an amazing sleep. I feel so great. I'm going to take a really nice shower. I'm going to make some coffee. You know what I mean? Like it's like a totally different energetic frequency.
Absolutely.
That then like that you're bringing into your work, your relationships with your kids, like with every like interaction that you could possibly be having. And so what I really love about starting there, it's like, how do you want to greet your day? How do you want to greet yourself? How do you want to greet the people that you love, or everyone in general? And what's that imprint that you want to have? And so it might be like backing up from that. Like, what would line you up to wake up feeling energized, rested, grounded? Maybe like you're tapping into creativity. Like, I don't know, maybe today I'm going to create something, or maybe today I'm going to get into service in a new way. And it could be really small. It might be like you have a thought of, oh, my friend's father isn't doing so well. I'm making food. Maybe I'll bring a little bit extra to them, right? Like when we're kind of like thinking outside of ourselves, it's such soul medicine, and it can be like a really great interrupter of the mind loop of the things that are going wrong, like in this sphere, like just around yourself. So those are just some things to think about. And you might be listening or watching and just be like taking notes. Don't feel like you have to incorporate all of these things. Just, choose one small thing, start there, like incorporate it for like maybe a few days and then add on. But we really want to think about longevity in terms of these habits of what can we do that would be long lasting, not like, oh, I'm going to wake up happy tomorrow and then like check that off the list. And then like the rest of my days, I'm going to be miserable and I commit to that. You know what I mean? So of course I'm joking. But just something to think about in terms of longevity practices to really bring something that can be helpful for the duration.
Yes. I'm thinking usually in what you said about being very internal or looking to outside of yourself, typically what I've noticed is people fall into kind of one or the other and not necessarily some hybrid thing. It's either all about me because I can't possibly think about anything else because of everything that's going on with me, or it's allowing oneself to disintegrate, almost like not taking care of oneself because of taking care of everyone else. And what I've noticed is people can struggle with the balance between giving and pouring out from their own cup and filling their cup first, but then not even filling their own cup for the woe is me story that can sometimes come in with all of the burdens of the things that are going on. What would you say to help people achieve balance between the caretaker role and the woe is me? I have to care for everyone and I can't even care for myself kind of mindset.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That's such a common attention. And there's a false shame that is put on any kind of self-care practice. If I mention to the majority of people the benefit of a regular yoga practice or getting a massage or some kind of self-care practice, more often than not, particularly for women and particularly for people who are actually managing a lot of trauma, physical pain, there's this deep, almost like pride around, no, for other people. And of course, there's the old adage of put your mask on first before you can help others. And so one way to think about that in real life is the morning practice. So whether you live alone or you live with people, if nothing else, really have sacred time of quiet and solitude, whether you're living alone or with other people, and let it be sort of like a co-silence. So I invite everyone that lives in the household, have a conversation. Let's start with 5 minutes. Let it be super modest, and then you can incrementally add the time. If you're able to wake up at 5, depending on if you're still working or like what your morning responsibilities are, it might be probably the most healing thing in a family or living by yourself to really not engage in devices, not engage in conversation, until you've tapped into source, God, something higher, something that you believe in, or like an uplifting kind of energy. That could be connection to nature, connection to your body, connection to your spirit. It could be those initial inquiries of what the thoughts are doing. You're journaling, perhaps. The invitation is that you're not reading, you're not taking in other information, that you're really just allowing yourself to be in like spirit, nature, self dialogue before you engage in the outer world. And this is where, you know, filling your cup exists, so to speak. So that's where you attune to practices. And so you might even journal. This feels so elusive to so many. So if you don't even know what your perfect morning is, know that that's totally normal. A lot of people don't. They just want more space, but they don't know what they would do with it.
I love that you're calling this piece out, because I agree. There's so many people that are like, I don't even, like, they can't even wrap their head around this concept of not jumping and running first thing in the morning, you know, and not to call anyone out. But some people will come with financial things, like first thing in the morning, getting in somebody else's space with a list and like,
yeah.
And I'm like, you just, no, I cannot. So thanks for validating.
It's we're turning a new leaf. Going forward, everyone is on a speaking fast, reasonably like before 8 a.m. Can we like all agree, like maybe even to 9, maybe even to 10?
I think some people might die if you know, a certain person is not a very talkative person, but I think if he were not to talk before 8 a.m., he might die.
Yeah.
Honestly.
So this is where you know, pen to paper. I really love the reminders, depending on what device you have. But if you have an Apple device, but I'm sure like other devices have something similar, like a reminders app, like pen to paper is best. But sometimes it's nice digitally, because then you can put it in your calendar, or you can like, I love the function on the iPhone where you can send a text, but you schedule it to send later.
Except for those people with Android phones that you can't do that
with.
You
can't do that with. But you could set it
fired again. Man, I'm not winning friends and influencing people
today. There's a bunch of blue bubble elitists around here. I tell you what.
But whatever device you have, you can be creative to send later. So if you set the parameter, say like from 7:30 p.m. to 7:30 a.m., that's like a really nice pocket of time. I'm not in communication with other people. I'm not emailing. I'm not texting. And but you also are proceeding with your communication. You let people know, hey, like this is space where I'm taking. I invite you to jump on the train. Like, let us have that space where we can really tune in. Because really, like, unless you're like an emergency on-call someone that is meant to be accessed during those hours, we really can have that do not disturb or like airplane mode, but like whatever function that you feel comfortable using. You could also alter it, like if you have like an aging parent, or you have like children that like need to reach you, you can select like these people can come through, but everyone else, like they can wait until after that window. And so this will take refinement. Like this is not, you know, I've decided this, unless of course you're like a fellow type A overachiever and you just implement all the things overnight. And then this is the new way of being, in which, you know, that's also great too. So, but like know for yourself, like what actually is helpful and what feels like, oh, this is like a really stressful protocol. And I'm like more anxious doing this than if I would just like speak and like say the financial things before 8 a.m. like you want to. But it is a really great practice, because what you start to realize, so Buddha's law is, before you speak, you ask yourself, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary?
Oh, this is so interesting. We used to, with our kids, we would say, is that a think violation? Is what you said, thoughtful, helpful, inspiring, necessary, and kind.
Yes.
And I can't believe I just pulled that out all these years later, but we always did that with our kids. So like,
oh, I love that. Yes, you could even kind of rewind and like run the thoughts through that. And so then you could just be like, okay, all of a sudden I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not saying anything, right? Like so many things are filtered through. Like I almost think of like one of those like very like thin sifters where like only like
cheesecloth.
very select thoughts and then only very select words are actually able to come through. And so that's really powerful. And what will start to happen is like even if you have that as a burr in your brain, even if you say the thing, like what will start to happen is you'll catch yourself like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
you'll have a moment, or your partner
Like, oh, that
will say,
toothpaste got out of the tube. I can't put that toothpaste back in the tube now. It's
yeah,
out.
yeah,
Whoopsie. Now I have to clean the bathroom.
yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I want to ask you about the language that we can sometimes use. Like, oh, I've got a bum knee now, as Shel Silverstein would say in one of his poems, my appendix pains each time it rains. When people use this language to define ailments, what becomes possible with shifting of language in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great transition from the is it true, is it kind, is it necessary processing. Because how do we want to prove ourselves right? If we're actually seeking to heal something and we're continually saying that it's bad, then we're in this self fulfilling prophecy of this is bad. And if we let go of defining this is bad and this is good, and all of it is in just like a very neutral, non judgmental way, and maybe rather the words are, I feel sensation in my left hip. I feel a clicking when I move in this way, where you're like naming facts, right? Like you're like
Right.
naming sensation. You could name the pain, like I'm experiencing pain or I'm experiencing tightness, which is different than this is my bad hip,
Right.
right? It's a different kind of quality in the
I
same way that you would do with your children. Like my son is, you know,
exactly.
having a challenge in this day. There's some tears, right? Like you can just kind of call it versus like, this is my bad son. He's like
Yes.
always having a tantrum, which sometimes we'll do always like these like big sweeping statements.
Right.
Like
The
I always
superlative
have pain. Like
words.
I always feel like I can't do this or like I should be able to do this. And so when we can just get a little bit more granular and name things more specifically, then perhaps we can address what's actually happening to be on the pathway or like continue the pathway of healing in a way that feels actually serviceable. So this is very common. People will say, oh, I can't, lift this arm because this is my bad shoulder, for example. This is like a very
Right.
common thing. It's like, okay, we can think about lifting the arm, and then we can find mobility where we can start to find movement kind of around that. And then when we let go of it being just so, what ends up happening is we actually let go of the gripping around the protection around it, because the restriction of movement or like any kind of trauma that we're holding, we actually hold on to it as a safety or a protective mechanism. And so when we think of it that way, it's like, okay, I'm having this response for my own protection and my own safety. And so how can I give a signal to this shoulder, for example, that it is safe, that it has permission to move? And so that can be like this kind of like, I think of it as like a cajoling or like a kind of like a massaging through where the restrictions are, just to teach it and to build that trust. And that can take some time, certainly, but it's so worthwhile. And it does, exactly to your point, it starts with how we're thinking about it and what our language is around it.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like this is taking the identity out of it, because one thing that comes up that we speak to a lot to our clients and in the podcast are these I am statements. You can choose empowering statements or you can choose disempowering statements. I am someone with a bum knee, or I am this injured individual, or I am working through movement in this space. One is very empowering and one is disempowering. And it sounds like that's in the same vein of what you've just described here.
Yeah. So what's coming through is where we are in integrity with our intention or with our goals, and where maybe the integrity is not on solid ground, right? So if I have the intention to eat foods that love me back, and then I have a hectic day and I'm like, "Ugh," like I just want like the largest ice cream as possible, right? Or like whatever like the comfort thing is of the moment. There's such an opportunity to take a pause, right? So this is like you're like noting, okay, like the stimulus is this, and then I can create a breath or 4 or 10 before I like go ahead and I do this knee jerk reaction thing. And then in that pause, it's like, okay, like how do I want to choose in alignment with my intention? Right. So it's letting go of these quick sort of like dopamine, like, oh, like I'm going to feel really good when I do this. But then what actually has the long lasting result, right? Which doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like say ice cream is off the table for the rest of your days, but that you would do it mindfully, right? And maybe that's like where you savor it, but it's breaking the cycle of I'm going to just do this thing almost like half asleep and then feel guilty about it later versus I'm going to go ahead and indulge, right? So like you could have like nuance within, like it doesn't, I'm just trying to say like it doesn't have to be black and white. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, but it's like, what am I doing most of the time that is in support of my intention? Or am I running like an old script? So we often talk about of like, are you living your life by design or by default? Like, are you in these habits because this is what you've always done? And then are you able to wake up to this new day and decide, you know what? I have a new script that I'm running, or like I'm telling myself a different story. And in this space of uplift, right? Like you could almost like think like, all right, the new lens that I'm looking through, like I like put on glasses, and like the new lens I'm looking through is like whatever aligns with feeling uplifted, healing, joyful, spacious, free. That's what I'm going to be in the direction to. And the things that feel like constricted, dampening, heavy, like that's not on the table anymore. So that'll take some time, because there's definitely like old ingrained habits that we might not even be conscious about. And so a lot of it will just be like, you might even write it down. Sometimes that's really good to just like write down in real time. You could have like a little pocket journal or like voice note into your device of, okay, this happened and this was my response. Or this happened, I wanted this response and then I chose this, and then this is how I feel, right? So you could just be almost like in that massaging of like what the habits want to be for like your current modern self. So I always say like sometimes in those moments of trigger.
Can I just pause there for a second? Because I think there's a lot of really great stuff that you said, and I want to marinate in it for a bit before just progressing on, because I think this is so crucial. You just said one of the, like, such a beautiful thing that I loved hearing. It was, say it again, please. I'm like, say what you said. And you're like, there's a lot of stuff.
Eating foods that love you back.
Eating foods that love you back. Yes. I love that. And to what you just said about the experience, I think when we're mindful of what our real outcomes are, and I think a lot of people listening can identify with this occurring at some point in their life. And for me, I had something very recently that I identified. So I had a hamstring injury, and then I had the contralateral hamstring injury, which is pretty common, but a lot of these injuries are around inflammation as well, can build up. And so I had that evening where I wanted the dopamine hit, and I had some plant-based ice cream in the freezer. But I was like, okay, that could increase inflammation. It would satisfy my need of just something else, but it could also increase inflammation. So what else could I do that would satisfy this want of something sweet and delicious and maybe cold? And I was like, oh, I have frozen cherries in the fridge, and I have some really good dark chocolate, high percentage of cacao. And I'm like, I could do that. And that has greater antioxidant content, less processing. And so this really is a way to nourish my body better and meet this need over here. And neither one would have been wrong, to your point, not labeling it as good or bad, but it was a way that I could nourish myself through food, or be kind to myself through food, or choose food that loves me back. That's what you said. Yeah,
I think choosing food that loves you back is a much nicer version of my personal eat food that diabetes hates. That's I think it's better energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think food is fuel. And so oftentimes I think of like the archetype of the 14-year-old version of ourselves and the 2-year-old version of ourselves, right? Like the palette of those two versions of ourselves, of the things that we craved, that still lives in us, right? Like I've definitely had moments in real life, like adulting, where I want like the processed food. Like I just want like something that I can like crunch, or like something very sweet. And
it is very scientifically designed for you to want it. There's lots of science that goes into the crunch and the taste and the mouthfeel and all of the things. So it just means you're human if you like it.
Oh, absolutely. And what's so remarkable about being on this journey and even just listening to this conversation is it's opening up the possibility of choosing differently. And if we're committed to a practice of growth, forever journey growth, like I think, like, would you let your 14-year-old or your 2-year-old drive your car? Like probably not. Like you want like the adult version of you to be in the driver's seat. And so it's like, why are you all of a sudden letting this kid be like, no, like I'm the boss right now, like reach for that thing. And what starts to happen is like you flex this muscle of choosing differently. So almost like you would go to the gym and do like bicep curls or something. Like you're flexing this muscle to choose differently, to like open up the freezer and be like, so this is the self-care practice. This is like the idea of putting your oxygen mask on first. Like maybe it's like not even food. Maybe it's like, oh, I just really want a hug from my favorite person, like for at least 10 seconds. That would change the physiology. Maybe it's
release
I just want to put
and
it's like maybe I just want to put music on and dance like no one's watching. Maybe I want to run a bath and have like a nice soak, right? Like it doesn't have to be like choosing a different food. Maybe it's like not even like the hunger that we think that it is. Like we think that it's for food, but oftentimes if we sit with it, maybe we have some tea or we have some water, we realize like, oh, I'm actually not hungry for food. It's a nourishment that I'm craving that's usually like a feeling of wanting connection. And this is why like whenever I go on retreat, when I'm in nature, when I'm with my favorite people, my appetite for food is so little. And
I want to just add to that, just so that people don't misconstrue. We're not saying that you just sit with it until the hunger goes away and ignore the hunger.
No.
What I'm hearing you say, what I'm hearing you say is you sit with it and try to listen to your body, that it truly is a normal physiologic symptom that you're hungry. And if you do have that normal physiologic symptom, that you go eat. But if you ate an hour ago with something with a variety of fat and carbs and protein, and then you're feeling like you need to eat, then maybe it's something else, as you just spoke to. And I just wanted to be very clear on that, because I
Yeah,
think sometimes
thank
people
you
can
for
take it
that.
and run in a different direction.
100%. Yeah. So just to say it in a different way is, if you're in a meditation of stillness, usually you'll feel like, oh, I need to itch my nose, or I need to adjust, like fidget.
This is my life. Anytime I try to meditate, it's like, oh, the nose is just the itchiest thing ever.
Yeah.
It's so
Let me
funny.
just adjust my hair. Oh, wait, let me just like mop the floor really quick. Or actually, let me just like completely reorganize the pantry. Like, we'll have like different itches that
You've
come
got my
through
number, Veronique,
Yeah.
for sure.
I do the same thing. Like, it's like, oh, let me just do these other things and procrastinate against this thing that I actually set out to do. And what we're in is, we're like in a very hyper comfort culture of, when we have the impulse for something, we want to scratch the itch, whether it's to eat the food, to buy the thing, to turn the temperature down or up or whatever. We're like constantly in this like tweaking way. And for many of us, like, we're able to, right? Like, to be able to have these comforts, to be able to eat every waking moment, if we live in a place where we have access to food all the time. Like, a lot of people, I talk to people, like, they're like, no, 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 I have to eat as soon as I wake up. And then, well, I have to have my snack right before I go to bed. And it's like, do you have to? And to your point, I'm not trying to be on this fasting tirade. That's not it at all. But it's just to be a witness to like when those thoughts arise, because there's a certain, like, we're all addictive beings, right? Like, we want to be comfortable, like, we want to feel at ease within our body, within our human experience. And yet, actually, what I'm inviting everyone to think about is actually to seek to be comfortably uncomfortable, because that is this really delicious place where growth can exist, where we can have the impulse for something and we sit with it and we let it marinate. And then we start to really examine, like, what version of myself wants this? And if it's in alignment with the uplift, with the healing, then absolutely have it, right? If it's not causing harm to yourself or others, right? If it's the food that loves you back, if it's the practice that loves you back. And then maybe if it isn't, it's just creating that pause to choose differently.
I love that.
So while we're talking about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable,
You're
I'd like
largely
to leap
uncomfortable.
back to yoga if I could. You said something earlier that, honestly, I think I had a paradigm shift kind of.
We've been in yoga the whole time.
It's true.
When you were talking about body awareness,
yes,
right? With our population, we're always encouraging more movement, right? Wherever you're at now, probably need to move some more. And I think that kind of immediately pivots to exercise. And of course, I got my cardio and my weightlifting and all this other kind of stuff. And then like yoga's over here. But the thought that I had was, when you're talking about yoga, or really when you're talking about body awareness, really what you're talking about is proprioception training, which for our population tending to skew older, that balance piece is critical. That balance piece is the difference between a new lifelong injury and the ability to move effortlessly in space. Could you talk maybe a little bit about, again, for the population that's not familiar with yoga, and maybe intimidated by some of those weird poses and some of that other kind of stuff, what does an entrance to yoga look like for the layperson?
Oh, there's so many access points to this. In general, it's a mindfulness in whatever it is you're doing. The thing that feels actually most at the surface and probably the most pressing in this time is getting really, really aware of one's posture.
Oh, here we go.
I know. Let me sit back straight here. Called out.
I don't think my parents would mind me sharing this. I was just visiting with my dad and stepmom in California last weekend, and they always want me to help them with their posture when we get together. And they realize now that this is part of the yoga practice, because one of our longevity principles is, I mean, and you can see the archetype of the grandfather shuffling in his slippers, hunched over, head cast forward. And with gravity and with time, there's like this rounding, right? This kind of kyphosis, this rounding in the upper back. And what we want to be attuned to is a tall spine, an open chest, head atop the body. In this modern, I know everyone's like sitting up. I mean, everyone listening and watching should absolutely change their position immediately, right? And what we'll start to realize, just like how the palate shifts, we'll start to realize like, oh, it actually feels so much better to sit up tall. I have a theory, which I would love to have like a real paradigm shift in the way that we dress, because if you track the posture of our ancestors until like the 1970s, of like the hippie era, where we let go of class, of getting dressed up to go to the grocery store or the airport, right? You can see the posture of people on a subway train from the 60s and earlier to like what a subway train looks like today, of people like, not universally, obviously, but like a vast amount of people like showing up to the airport in their pajamas, right? If you're showing up wearing loose clothes as if you're like asleep at home, your posture is naturally going to be like this. If you live in an area that is cold climate, your posture is naturally going to be closed in, right? Versus if you are dressed in a way that feels uplifting. And this is why like the inside outside conversation is so important, because yes, we want it to come from the inside, and yet, right, we can't help but see that if we're dressed in a certain way where we're like, okay, like I feel confident, I feel empowered, like I feel beautiful, I feel handsome, whatever you want to, use language that feels like it resonates with you. And then the way that you sit and the way that you stand is reflective of that. And so maybe your yoga practice, as like a very nice entry point, is finding 2 feet on the ground or like a seat, either like in a chair or on the floor, wherever you're comfortable, and just start to play with, how can my spine be taller? How can I open my chest more? Shoulders back, head atop the body. If you're not aware, you can always practice this in the mirror, or you can turn your camera on. Most people would be surprised if you're watching the video. Like
Neck
most
forward.
people's heads are like this. If you live in a city where you drive, get in your car and tell me where your head is in relation to your headrest. And adjust your seat, please, please, please. And then you could play a game when you're driving and get to a red light and like look side to side and notice the majority of people have their head like way forward of their headrest. And no wonder the alignment of our necks and our shoulders are completely like this. And I say this not for like aesthetic purposes, but for the mood, for your ability to feel good in your body, a friendliness of your joints. I know you could listen and just kind of like move your neck around, right? Like, I kept on my parents for this of, they're holding their device like down here below them. It's like,
Bring
just
it to your
lift it
face.
up. So it's at eye height. Like, why are you rounding over? Whether it's your phone, your newspaper, whatever it is you're reading, like orient your things up, so that you're not always like this. If you're talking to young children or like this, the idea is you're not like bending down, but you like squat down. You like get so that you're at eye level with the people that you're talking to, or you're at eye level with the thing that you're interacting with. So those would be just like very, I know that's a lot of things, but basically it's like, how do you orient in your like stance and your posture, so you feel like you're poised, that you feel elegant, that you feel strong. And if nothing else, I think that would be like a really phenomenal entry point.
I agree. And I think that is probably the most fundamental. Completely agree with what you're saying. And I've seen that play out in my grandmother, who's 97. She can speed walk on her walker, but At times when I've walked with her, I'm like, Granny, can you just like, her walker will be 4 feet out in front of her, and she's completely almost at a 90-degree angle between her hips and where her hands are on the walker. And I'm like, just get up underneath the walker, squeeze your buttocks in underneath you and have that alignment and tighten your stomach. Can you speak to a little bit more like what they're trying to feel? How do you know? One thing I do when I'm driving is I will push my chin back into the headrest, and then I'll do that to try to counter that at times. Are there some tips on things people can do for more awareness of their posture? Because I often see people walking, looking down at the ground, and this is really, really prevalent.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the greatest honesty checks, which I invite everyone to get up and do this, is to find a blank wall in your space or a door where there isn't a painting or something inhibiting your back, and have your heels as close to the baseboard as possible, and walk yourself back so your shoulders are touching the wall. And then just remark where your head is. Is the back of your skull touching the wall? For most people, it won't. The only way they can get their head to the wall is to lift their chin up and lean their head back. What we really want to attune to is the chin staying level to the ground. And so it's that double chin that you were talking about, of bringing the chin back in space. And you might think, oh, I don't have a wall there. For most people, you won't find it. And that's become the new norm. And what we want the paradigm shift to be is actually to get back into that really tall, aligned spine and to reverse that gravity time bringing us down, because that's the energetic principle, right? If the physicality is down, then the mood is down, then our energy is low, right? If we want to feel energetic and we want to feel strong, then all of the front body needs to actually be open up and strong. So that would be a really great place to start. And something that you could do, and we had talked about habit stacking. And so if you're not familiar, habit stacking is just taking something that you do anyway and you add something to that. So you could just decide, okay, I'm passing this wall every time I go from the living room to the bathroom. And so every time I do that path, I go to the wall, I take 5 breaths, and I just practice. And what you'll do is you'll create that muscle memory for yourself where you're like, okay, this feels aligned. And then you'll try to maintain that, and you just take a step away from the wall and you try to maintain that. And then you try to walk with that. So Thich Nhat Hanh, he talked about, you want to walk like you're kissing the earth with your feet. So it's like this really nice, gentle walk, so that you could walk with an open mug of coffee while also walking your dog, and like you wouldn't knock the books off of your head, just like
not or shuffling along,
not shuffling, not jerking, not like a lot of people kind of sway when they walk. We want to be like gliding. We want it to feel very graceful, not rigid, but graceful, right? So you can just think about, you're not slamming your feet down or shuffling, but it's like you walk heel to ball of the feet, and you just start to play with. And when you do this slowly, you might actually be surprised that your balance falters. So if you're not steady on your feet, I definitely recommend good shoes where you have good ankle support. Maybe you have a steady friend that you can hold their arm. If you are with a walker, I would definitely get with a specialist and raise the height of your handles so that your shoulders can stay over your hips. That is paramount. So many of the walkers I see are encouraging the shoulders to be forward. So it actually requires it's like a modern style walker where the handles are higher, and it might feel like really effortful, and it actually wants to be. Like, you want to feel like your muscles are engaged, that you feel strong, that you're not relying on the walker as a lifeline, but it's there just more like a kickstand. But like, you want to really feel empowered that you can walk with that kind of poise and grace.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If you don't mind, I have maybe a little bit higher level question.
Yeah, please.
So Amber and I are doing some mobility work the other day and realized that, so we're talking about getting that chin back, getting the shoulders back. We're talking about is thoracic mobility.
That's you.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying.
Sorry.
The general we.
For those of us who find that, okay, I'm trying to get that spine back into normal, and that spine just does not want to move. We've had so many hours on hours on hours of just getting into that front. I call it the C shape. Like I want to be more like an I, not so much a C. What are there some, we talked about standing and trying to just place the head back. Is it trying to build up time in that position where I can do 5 breaths, or maybe I can do 6 now or something like that? Or is there some other things maybe that we can do to really, really accentuate that thoracic to both curve forward and backwards?
This is such a great question. And I might just back up a little bit and just allow each person listening, and then also the two of you, to think about what position your body is in the majority of your day, your waking hours. And what we want to do is we want to really intentionally find counter movements for those. So for example, like if you tend to be sitting in chairs, we can remark these hips are in flexion, right? The hip joint is being closed.
Right.
And so what we want to do is we actually want to find extension of the hips, meaning so that you could be standing, but you could also bring one or both legs behind the body. And there's different exercises to do that. In terms of the spine, it's designed to be in flexion and extension, so rounding and arching. And it's also meant to twist. And so when we're attuning to like the thoracic spine, the mid back in particular, we want to think about how do we feel? And then how do we want to feel? And so we want to look at that area. And then we also want to look at the surrounding muscles of that area, because I think of these as like the wingmen or like the best friends that come and they support. So it's like, yes, here, but then also like these lats, these side body muscles are very powerful. We want to, of course, look at the core, because if we look at the archetype of someone who has a belly, probably I would go all chips in that they have back pain, right? If you're like carrying extra weight here and you're not able to access an engaged core, you're probably loading a lot into your lower back. That's very common. And so what we want to do is we want to create length into the back, and we also want to create ways that we can engage, strengthen the core, which doesn't necessarily mean, and probably also I would not recommend just getting on the floor and doing crunches. I would actually be in like what I would call like secret engagements, which you could do queuing at the post office or as you're, chopping carrots at the counter, like whatever it is that you're doing, you could find that engagement. You could be driving, you could be sitting and listening to this conversation. And then all of a sudden, right, if you're in that tall spine, it's like you can't help it. Like the core just naturally wants to engage for you because it wants to be the support system of the back body. And so I might actually go through just like, do we want to do this now? Do we have a moment to just
absolutely
look at the spine? Yeah. So you could do it standing, you could do it kneeling. So if you're watching, or you could just close your eyes and be in the imagination of it. So for most of us, we dump into this lumbar, we get into this lordosis or this hyper arching in the back. And so what's great to do is just to bring one hand to the sacrum or this bony triangle here, and one hand to the belly, and just remark, see like the lower abdominals, they can engage in this position. They're very soft. And what we want to do is we want to just help the tail angle down. And you'll notice right away, this core lights up. You don't have to do a crunch. It doesn't have to be anything dramatic. You don't have to go to a gym and lift weights. You could literally just do this. You could be in the pelvic tilt of letting the lower back arch and then pull it down. And then we feel like, okay, this is how I want to be when I'm standing, queuing somewhere, if I'm running errands, whatever. Because if this is the new normal, then my glutes are engaged, my core is engaged. And then this thoracic spine that you had mentioned is a lot more open.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of us, these shoulders are very tight. So you could start by just bringing the arms and see how far back they can go. You can hold on to a towel or a strap if you have it behind you, if you have the availability to interlace the fingers. I quite love, as a habit stacking, you could find a doorknob or something to hold on to. So just imagine I'm like miming it here, but it's like at your kitchen counter, you could hold on and extend your hips forward. So here, like all at once, this is like such great multitasking. You get the opening of these hip flexors, you get the opening of the mid back, the opening of the shoulders of the chest, and then you can let your head go. And then here we're helping the back of the neck open up. This might be like the standing at the wall and kind of extending. I like to think of it as like Kate Winslet on the front of the Titanic. You could like just like do your best, like front of the ship, dramatic movement. But it's so amazing. I was doing this with my parents who are, they say that they're forever 44, but let's just say that they're older than that. And they were just like, oh my gosh, this feels so good. Why don't we do this all the time? And I said, well, yeah. If you did that every time and you just pick two spots, right? It's like, okay, as the coffee is brewing, I do my Titanic. When I go from this area to the next room, I stand with my back against the wall. Just like two of those, like you could pepper in just as you think about it. It doesn't have to be like this, like very like hard, fast rule, but that over time versus, oh, I'm going to go to the gym once a week and just try to like figure out what to do. I think that that would be more long lasting beneficial.
I love this because with our clients, a lot of times when trying to introduce deeper squats, the ability to get down low and open up your hips and all that, we call them kitchen sinks because that's something that almost everybody has, and it's got a nice handle, so I'm not going to fall back, but I can practice getting lower and getting comfortable. What you're talking about is the reverse kitchen sink. I can now back my butt right up to that sink and walk a little bit forward and kind of open that chest and that arm up. So it's an exercise tool that you didn't know you had in the house that's right. Readily available for both getting in that low squat and opening up that spine. That's great.
What I like about it is movement is cumulative. And I think so many times we think of carving out this big chunk of our day, and not every day is going to allow for that. So I think it's important, if you've been at a computer in this hunched over state, that, as you said earlier, you do something where you're backwards. And I've noticed too many times within myself and others, if coffee is brewing, you're just sitting there staring at the coffee pot sometimes. They're just like zoning out when you could be opening up and doing the opposite. And I think it's just thinking about it differently. And then I think another reason why we might not do these more often is that at times I've been in positions and I'm like, oh, ow, no, get out of that. Like that protective mechanism that comes in wants you to stop, when maybe all that's needed is an easing up of that position to a more comfortable position and getting to a space where you can breathe into it. And as you were saying before, telling yourself that this is a safe position, that you can hang out here for as long as you like, and then just continue to build.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, because I think what we also want to refine is our discernment of what is uncomfortable versus what is painful. And sometimes that gets jumbled. So if it's just uncomfortable, we want to deepen the breath in the practice that I think is stimulating the parasympathetic or that rest and digest state. It's recommended to breathe in and out through the nose, just to send that signal like, I am calm, I am safe, I am easeful. And what I love to recommend is like you come into it and you back out. So you almost like you're in this sort of, you could emulate water kind of energy. So like, for example, in that stretch of, say you come to the counter and you come and you're like, ow. So you like back out, and then maybe it's like, okay, let me try widening my feet and then come back and, oh, that actually feels better. Yeah, widening the feet is a brilliant adjustment. The back is so much happier. So you can just be in curiosity, like, what if I bring this shoulder back? What if I bring this shoulder back? And just be in a little bit of an experimentation versus thinking, like, I can't do it. Because what tends to happen is we'll try to go end range and then we have to
Mhm.
like eject, but
Yeah.
really come into it slowly. Like I almost think almost like a jellyfish kind of energy where you can kind of like
Mhm.
come in and you come out and you're like in this conversation. So rather than thinking like I have to hold it, because what tends to happen is if we hold a shape and we think like I just have to like hold this for like 5 seconds, what we tend to do is we also hold our breath. And then the
Mm.
face gets like really tight. And then we feel like we're doing this really serious thing. So, what we actually want to do is we want to make sure you have a good hold for that particular stretch, but you're not gripping for dear life. You want to have a good hold, but the fingers are relaxed. You want to send the breath in and out through the nose, like you come in and you come out. And then it's like you want there to be a softening into it. So you're not trying to get anywhere, but you're actually wanting almost like you were creating your own self massage. It's like you want to move in a way that feels good and that you're like moving through any kind of like anything that you like held on to subconsciously into the night. We want to shed that as much as possible.
Right. Well, Veronique, we want to be respectful of your time. Normally, we try and give people one thing that they can easily integrate into their practice, like this week, or maybe even today.
We gave people a lot of things.
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
if
I've
like
got some
just
things
one
today. This
real,
is great.
yeah, it's great.
You're going to be
What
silent tomorrow
it-
morning. Just kidding.
if you could have every listener to this podcast start doing one thing that they can, again, very, very easy, low barrier to entry, what would that be?
What's coming through is finding gentleness with yourself,
Hmm.
running everything through that. Like, how can I be softer? How can I be more caring with this thought, with this movement, the way that I am with myself, and then how that extends to others? And just being in that care. I think if we can turn the volume up on that, so to speak, that just feels like a really beautiful peacefulness that can have a really powerful ripple effect.
I love that because, particularly for the males in our audience, a lot of times, particularly in our culture, gentleness tends to get associated with weakness, and that's not true. Gentleness is an intentional restraint of strength. The analogy I would use, like when you're holding a baby, clearly I could hurt this baby if I'm not very gentle, right? So
Mhm.
that is, that really just hits home because how often are we just so hard on ourselves just all the time? I didn't do this or this, whatever. That's really beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. A great way to do that, just in terms of starting now, is you could decide I'm waking up new. You could, if you're at home, actually go to bed, or in your mind's eye, go to bed, curl up, and then decide I care for this body, I care for this spirit, I care for this life. You could think of your favorite people and just hold everyone with so much care. And then it's like, okay, I'm starting anew. I'm going to greet this day anew. And you can reset as many times as you need to, whether you actually,
Mhm.
like, sometimes it's nice to just be the actor in your own life. Like, take yourself back to bed, start
Mhm.
over. That might be a fun activity to do with kids if they're like, not not greeting the day well, but we can do that for ourselves, and it actually is really impactful. It's like, how do I want to greet this day, and just with that gentleness,
Mhm.
and then it's like open the eyes again, and then just turn the dial up on awe and wonderment, like, "Ah, wow, like this life we get to live, like the earnestness of that, it's really, it's just so impactful."
Mhm.
Very cool.
And I love that you can hit the reset button as many times as you
Yeah.
need to. I think that sometimes the spiral has gone down and it's like, well, it's all done. It's all for nothing.
Another one.
And yeah, caution. Yeah, it's all out the window now because it's ruined. And I think that can be a very dangerous mindset to replay and get into a feedback loop of if this and this and this don't happen, then it's all just gone to crap. And it's like, no, you can always have a choice in that of how you want to begin again or continue.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes if I feel like I can't shake that, one of the best things that we can do. So I recommend this for like after work, or if you're kind of like in this section of your day and you're like shifting to like a different section, or you're like about to see somebody different, is to get in the shower. And like when the water hits you, you can just really visualize like a rinsing off. And you can do that as often as you want. You could also be in the visualization of letting the water rinse what you want to be rinsed off of you. Because a lot of the times when we have encounters with other people, or if we catch ourselves in the looping thoughts, we're like in that spiral, like you're saying, like it feels like, okay, like I don't know how to get off the train. And so I love just taking the physical body somewhere else and just creating some kind of ritual where like this is the reset. So that might be something just so that you could feel like a visceral, something different physically on your skin, because the skin, it takes in everything. It's very porous, like the information, the things that we put on it, like everything. So I did this the other day where it was just like one thing after the next. And I was like about to like run to meet up with a friend. And I thought, I'm going to get in the shower. Like I have to rinse this off because I can't just be continuing in this way. Right. So, I think it's so important, especially when we feel like we have to rush to the next thing. That's like so common where we feel like I have to just, it's like, you don't have to just, you just message the person and say, you're going to be 10 minutes behind because you just need to rinse off what just happened. And the people that we love will understand that.
I've had that happen where I've been that feeling of I'm running late. I need to go. I need to do this. And then just stopping and letting it be. Just, it is what it is. It will happen when it happens. And then lo and behold, the other side of that would be that other person was later than me, or that the deadline that I was nervous about got pushed back, or whatever. There's been just time after time after time where the worry has shown up, the rush, and I've let it go, and it was for nothing anyway. You know what I mean? It wouldn't have mattered, the rush.
Absolutely. So. Yeah. I always say that, well, this isn't just me. This is an old adage. Like if you don't have 5 minutes to meditate for an hour. When we attune to the things that are uplifting and grounding, we actually expand time on the other side, right? Like we think we don't have time. Oh, I have to do these tasks. I promise you, and like, feel free to reach out and say that I was wrong. If you go outside, hug a tree, like actually hug a tree, and you just like breathe with nothing actually needs to be done, but to be with the breath and connect to nature and to source and to community. I think that there's so much to be said about that, but I just wanted to speak to that because I know that this is such a grief season for so many, where we've been losing loved ones and losing different versions of ourselves, losing like the identity of I used to be able to do this. And a really powerful way to just remember that nothing actually can be lost is to feel the earth underneath your feet, or to connect to nature, because then you realize everything is changing. And when we can let go of grasping to how things were, then we can liberate that suffering that we're holding and really be in that practice of embracing all that is.
Awesome.
It's beautiful.
So, Veronique, if folks want to find out more about you, or want to work with you, or want to get access to your book, where can they go to find out all that stuff?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. You can visit my website, yogawithveronique.com. You can connect with me on Instagram at Veronique Ory. And I really do encourage everyone listening to reach out to me, to reach out to the two of you. There's this level of voyeurism that's happening right now with podcasts and social media. Like, it's so easy to listen and watch. And I implore everyone to be in engagement, to be an active participant in your life. And so if this moved you in some way to take action, whether it's reaching out to us to be in some kind of conversation, or to reach out to a friend to be in one of these stretches, to incorporate something that you've learned and to share that in a way that resonates, so that we can actually be in that living by design rather than default. If you want support, you can definitely reach out. I offer one-on-one sessions that are curated for each person. I have an on-demand membership, which actually bridges on-demand videos of meditation and yoga and the opportunity to practice with your community. So this sedentary and this loneliness epidemic, we can start to move away from that and really say, like, oh, Amber, like, do you want to meditate with me for 20 minutes tomorrow at 11? And then we just hop on a call. We can decide if we want video on or off. And then we're in the practice. We could stay on and have a conversation about it, or we go our separate ways. It's such a great way to keep that connection and to be in these kinds of conversations of uplift. And so that's available there. You can access my book, Shine On and Off the Mat. And shine is just another way of saying, like, what connects you to your vibrant, radiant life, where you feel uplifted, where you feel like you're joyful and creative and inspired. And so it's definitely a book of self-inquiry that you can read the stories and see yourself in that and be in that practice. And then I have retreats. I'm going to Italy in October. If you're like, I can't do this. Yeah. Sometimes, it now. Yeah. Sometimes you need company to find those silent mornings. So
Awesome. Well, Veronique, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh.
I've learned so much. Thank you for coming on.
Learn to leave me alone in the morning. No, I'm just kidding. I joke. I kid, but not really.
Thank you so much for coming on the Diabetes Podcast.
Thank you so much.
So take Veronique's advice. If you need help, reach out to us at support@empowereddiabetes.com. Be sure to tune in next week when we're wrapping up our 4-part series on the grift. And if you haven't listened to the other 3 episodes, now would be a great time to start. Until next time, take courage. You can do this, and we can help.